Hey, everybody, welcome to the nightly recap powered by Goxstein News Network. I'm Rob Nelson, bringing you the recap. I do the recap a little different than David and Hotep. Well, we all do it in our own way, I guess. When I first was doing it, I did a lot of like quick takes on a bunch of stories, which may be more fun. But my personality is more to kind of have a kind of a bunch of maybe a random series of stories and a little more take in each one. It's sort of how my brain works. One thing kind of triggers another for me. So good to have you. Thanks for watching. Obviously, you go to, and by the way, I know there's the news recap. Every day there's a series of news stories, and what I kind of call the threads, the updates to the existing stories, right? So like MTG, Trump blasting Marjorie Taylor Greene on Truth Social, that happens a few days ago. But then there's her response. Well, that's a day ago or 2 days ago. He's 3 days ago, then 2 days ago, then today. It's what happens next, and then sometimes the stories pause, right? So, for example, just coming out that there's a massive corruption scandal being blown up in Ukraine, $100 billion, $100 million scam, and that came out, I think, over the weekend. That basically Zelensky's top people are all implicated and tied into it. No one's directly saying he is, although there's rumors that he knew about it and said it was okay. But essentially, it's funny how it all comes back to energy. Remember Burisma? Hunter Biden, was getting the $50,000 a month stipend for being a consultant. Take a second and think about that. 1 minute for Scranton Joe, from Scranton Joe Biden, the people's man. His son, was absolutely no knowledge or skill or ability in the energy sector or in in the region of the world where Ukraine is. He's essentially a crackhead at this point, not today, but then. He gets a $50,000 a month contract to sit on their board for Burisma, the Ukrainian energy company. How did one person, even one person with one brain cell in the media, I'm clearly obviously talking about the mainstream left of center media because Fox News jumped all over it all day long, as did other conservatives, the Newsmaxes, whatever. But how did anybody in the media, I don't care if you work for MSNBC, I don't care if you're Rachel Maddow, heck, you can be Keith Olbermann. And we're talking full-on psycho with Keith Olbermann, right? Anybody who says anything, like if Bernie Sanders said, I think Donald Trump did something right, Keith Olbermann would be like, die, Bernie Sanders, die, you stupid Jew. Like, literally, that's what he would do. Wouldn't matter who says it, be black, white, Islamic, Jewish, Christian, wouldn't matter. If you say something about Trump or something good or something mega, Keith Olbermann will literally like lose his mind. Like, he's an insane dude, really. But even how Keith, with a brain cell, you couldn't figure out how in the world why would Burisma pay Hunter Biden, of all people, $50,000 a month? That's $600,000 a year to sit on their board when he knows nothing about what they do. Nothing about energy, nothing about the region, nothing about the politics, and is essentially like a crack addict who sleeps with prostitutes. Not that there's anything wrong with sleeping with prostitutes. I'm just saying that's essentially who this guy is. Why would you give him that money? Wouldn't be because his dad was vice president. No. Let's think of a reason that makes sense. What about the dad vice president thing? No, it doesn't make sense. No. Must be something about Hunter. Maybe he has some hidden knowledge that we didn't know. None of us have seen. I guess the press was like, Hunter must know something about energy that we didn't know Hunter knew. What could it be his dad was vice president? No. That would have nothing to do with it. No. Okay. Just checking. So anyway, everybody knew there's corruption there, right? I mean, Trump famously got impeached for saying he was temporarily withholding military aid, right? If they didn't, well, the story was if they didn't get him info on the Biden's corrupt deals with the Ukrainians, So he wanted dirt. Was it right to hold the aid hostage for a few weeks? Probably not. But was he right that there was probably information they knew about the corruption of the Bidens? Absolutely. Again, why was Hunter Biden getting $50,000 a month to sit on the board of Burisma? Ask yourself this. Ask your 4-year-old. Well, what's Burisma? Big energy company. Oh, do you think you want to sit on the board of it? I don't know anything about that, Dad. Sorry, Mom, not my thing. No, but we put you on the board. We'll get you all the chocolate, cookies, and ice cream and whatever. You can have all the things you want. Okay, I'll do that. Yeah, because you know about energy. No, I don't know about energy, but I want the cookies. I mean, seriously, people. Like, this isn't rocket science. So, remember, Trump gets impeached over it. Well, that's one of the impeachments, right? Talk about politics. Meanwhile, remember, Biden did this similar thing where he threatened to withhold $1 billion, I think it was, in aid. And he bragged about this. Remember him bragging about it over and over? And I went to them and I said, if you don't fire that prosecutor now, we're not giving you the aid. Always struck me as interesting that that the very people who did this got mad when Trump did a version of it. Like, Trump basically said, you guys have corruption. We're going to withhold aid if you don't clean that up. And then underneath that was apparently a request for info. It wasn't like, hey, give me the info or I withhold the aid. That was just sort of implied in there. It's like the withholding was clean up the corruption. And then underneath was, we know Bidens are tied into that corruption. Give us the dirt. Either way, interesting that the very people who started that, the Bidens, with Joe Biden bragging about how he threatened to cut off $1 billion in aid if they didn't fire a prosecutor who may have been corrupt. Seems like half the government in Ukraine is. But one thing is for sure about him. He was investigating Burisma. That part is true. He may have been corrupt. He was also investigating Burisma, which, again, for those of you just tuning in, was the energy company paying his son $50,000 a month to sit on a board for which he was completely unqualified. Huh. Fire that prosecutor. Why? Because he's corrupt. Okay. Again, really? Or is it because he's about to investigate the company that your son is getting paid a bunch of money to sit on because you're probably doing some kind of backdoor favors for them? Huh. Fire him or you don't get $1 billion in aid. Well, that story never got a lot of attention. Even when Trump did it, the left side of the media never called it out for what it was. If at the best, in the best scenario for them, it's something doesn't add up. Doesn't add up that you're trying to fire this one prosecutor because he's corrupt who happens to be about to investigate the company that has your son getting $50,000 a month when he's a crackhead, knows nothing about it or the region and sits on the board. And there's implications that you're working and perhaps doing things in their behalf. That's a best case scenario. Even if you're not giving them anything, that's why they're doing it. And an investigation might uncover that. Fire the guy, we won't give you $1 billion in aid. Always caught me. Anyway, my point. There's now a probe, and it goes back to energy. People siphoning like $100 million off. It's that sort of pay to play thing, right? It's like, we'll keep the government contract if you funnel X amount of the contract to me. So, it's the oldest rule in the book, right? The mobs would do it, right? You want to keep, who ran big cities. You want to keep the city contract in Chicago, you give us X amount of money. And we'll make sure you guys are the sanitation company, the garbage picker-uppers, the plumbers, the whatever. We'll use the city dollars, award you contracts if you give us a piece. That's the oldest, corruption scheme in the book. Just doing it in Ukraine with energy? Wow. In the middle of a war when you're the top officials? I'm not saying Zelensky's part of it, but just wow, wow, wow. Like wow and wow on wow. Your country's being ravaged in a war. Russia's targeting your critical infrastructure. Your people are freezing. You're rationing power. And you take a cut from the contracts in order to award them to the companies from the money we're giving you? We in Europe are giving you this money. You're taking a cut from the energy contracts when your people are freezing and being rationed energy, and Russia's targeting your infrastructure. Just wow. Wow to the wow to the wow. I mean, people have no zero sense of decency, of any ethics. Made me wonder. This corruption thing in Ukraine's gone on and on and on. And Zelensky says he wants to root it out. Everyone else says they want to root it out. I'm wondering, is Zelensky corrupt? People have said he is. I'm wondering. I don't know. Well, and one of the people involved at the top of this was his business partner in the studios. Remember, he was an actor. It's not good look when your business partner's involved in it, when some of your top aides and people in top positions are involved in it. Doesn't really look good. Does make you wonder. Do you not know what's going on under your own henhouse roof? Maybe. Or do you know and looking the other way? Or are you even involved? At this point, I don't know. I know this war doesn't add up in so many ways. And I know I was shocked by Zelensky. Look, if you're Zelensky, you're getting everything. On the one hand, yes, your country's fighting a war, but you're in the best spot to be in that. You're the president. You get the best treatment. You're the most important. You're in wartime footing. You avoid elections. You got power and control everywhere. The world pays attention to you. You're on a global stage all the time. Cameras on you everywhere. You go meet world leaders. I used to always think back to like World War II. I was like, it was a shitty time for a lot of people fighting that war in all kinds of countries, but the leaders were doing fine. I mean, Roosevelt, yeah, he was like probably not sleeping a lot, a huge burden on his shoulders. He's trying to navigate a war, but I'm like, yeah, but you're in the best position. You're the guy in the best position. You're the president. You get all the benefits and all the things. Nobody's sending you to die. You're sending other people to die. Everybody's coming to you. Everybody's coming to you to solve the problem. It's like being a mob boss. So I don't know. All right. I'm not saying Zelensky's a mob boss. I'm just saying I don't feel sorry for the guy. Like the rest of his country suffering in a war, he's not suffering in the war. He's leading it and trying to figure it out and gets all the perks that come with that. And it did strike me as interesting when he went to the White House and that whole blow up with Vance and Trump. In my show, Rob Nelson Live earlier, I criticized Trump for a lot of things, and I will criticize him for his ego and how he, again, stomps on anybody who shows any dissent or whatever. But I will not question he has an incredible intuitive sense about people and things. And I think he sensed something with Zelensky the whole time. Don't know if he knows what it is either. But I think when Zelensky showed up, kind of all whatever, like tough guy into the White House, used to that treatment, I think Trump and Vance were like, wait, we're the ones bailing you out in a war that we think you should get out of. And yes, you'll take losses, but if you don't get out of it, you'll take bigger losses. Russia won't lose this war. You won't win this war. So how much are you willing to lose? You want to lose this much? You want to lose more later? How many more people you want to sacrifice? It's a practical outcome. It's not ideal. No, it's not the moral high ground. Russia gives everything back and leaves on our terms. Great, except they're not going to. It's not happening. And they're bigger and stronger and have more ability to survive even with our help. You're not going to win this war. It's just going to extend and extend and extend until you're more worn down and they're more worn down, but they're bigger so they can take worn down 10 times that you can take worn down. How much of your male youth population that, will create the next generations you want to sacrifice? How many people you want walking around with with prosthetics? How much damage you want to do? You got to walk out of it. Now, I will say Zelensky finally got there and I think was ready to. Putin was like, no, I'm going to drive the dagger in harder. That's a more complex problem now. Now you got to figure out how you make Putin walk away with what he's got because he feels the upper hand. Again, I think that's an energy thing. Got to deplete his coffers. Not, again, this back to the China, India buying the energy, etc. Okay, moving on. I know that was a major tangent. Point is, there's another corruption investigation into Ukraine. And as with all these things, and this probe's coming from within, It makes you just realize why people question on the surface everything. Because you just don't know what to believe anymore. You just don't know what's legit, who's being straight up with you. This is going to seem like I'm literally like swinging the car to the other direction. Olivia Newsy, the reporter who was, had the text, sexting, whatever relationship with RFK Jr. And everyone's agreed something went on between them. No physical. Everyone says nobody hooked up with anybody. They only met once or twice, I believe, in person. But clearly they had exchange in text, and depending on who you ask, how much. But I think everybody pretty much acknowledges that it was essentially inappropriate if you were married and your spouse didn't know you did this. That would cross the line. Beyond that, I don't know. Who knows? They do. The participants know. I think it was that the Times did a profile on her because her book came out. So she wrote a book about it, a memoir. I just took this one part of it out. This is based on what she wrote in the book. She loved his eyes, quote, blue as the flame. She loved that, quote, the sight of something as trivial as a rose could move him to tears. She loved his insatiable appetites and his, quote, particular complications and particular darkness. That's from her memoir. That's the Times reflecting on her memoir about it and other things. I thought it was interesting. Kennedy's not really denied that he's complicated and has a darkness and his huge appetites. I thought it was interesting. That's what she loved, which is understandable. Made me think about people who are powerful, often are complicated. Often have a darkness and often have massive and huge insatiable appetites. Tough to be married to that person. I relate to some of it. When I had more my television power, political power, I understand that. I understand having big appetites. I understand. I took advantage of it. I wasn't married, but doesn't mean I didn't, take advantage of those appetites because I could. And certainly cheated on people. I would tell them. So I guess it was cheating, confessing cheating, but ultimately ended a lot of relationships. I also understand being complicated and dark. And I understand how, to even the extent that I built things, my own talk shows, my political campaign being, the original spokesperson for Generation X, to even move those needles, you have to be a little complicated. And sometimes, when you're thoughtful and complicated, there's a darkness involved too. Darkness doesn't mean evil. Darkness like you want to hurt people. It means a darkness inside you. Winston Churchill had the darkness. I think now they're finding Roosevelt did. I think most political leaders do at some level. Complicated, dark. It struck me as interesting that was, and she went for it. And, they had some kind of a text thing going back and forth. Well, this is great fodder for those who wanted to throw RFK Jr. under the bus. Remember, and I interviewed him during this time, RFK Jr. ran as a Democrat. He wanted to take on incumbent President Joe Biden, win the nomination, and felt he could lead the country as a Democrat. Democrats in the institutional power wouldn't allow that. The party would not allow that to happen, not even to let the competition happen. And the media signed right up and was like, we're taking him down. Now, granted, the reason was the vaccines. The reason wasn't really the vaccines. The reason was the establishment wanted to keep Biden, and RFK Jr. wasn't establishment enough. He threatened the establishment. He was willing to call out the sacred tenets of the establishment. He was willing to actually speak truth to power. That's what he did his whole career. He was willing to say, I'm not going to buy this just because you said I should. It's a little like an MTG, a Marjorie Taylor Greene on the left. I'm gonna call it as I see it. And just because you say so doesn't make it so. Just because you say the vaccines are safe doesn't mean I believe you. Show me. And I spent a lot of time looking at how you did this. Show me. And why are you silencing all the people who are saying it's not, and they're showing you how it's not, and you're silencing them so no one can see that? He's like, show me the science. Does he have opinions? Sure. This was an interesting one. They did a big summit, health summit thing the other day. And one of the things came up was allergies. Why are so many kids have food allergies? It's like 1 in 13. It's crazy. It's almost 10%. And more adults. And he said, when I was a kid, I never met anyone with a peanut allergy. I had 11 siblings and about 71 first cousins. Wow, that's a lot of first cousins. Kennedys are popping them out. And I didn't know a single person in my schools or at any of the camps I went to who had one. I could see the media jumping all over this. RFK Jr. says he never knew anybody with peanut allergies, implying peanut allergies aren't real. Peanut allergies are fake. First of all, I never knew anyone with a peanut allergy. I'm closer to his age than maybe a lot of you. But if you're over 45, certainly 50 and up, I bet you don't know anybody who had peanut allergies. And if you did, it's like one person somewhere along the way. Be easy to throw Kennedy under the bus and be like, see, here he is again, saying crazy shit like it doesn't exist. Well, he actually wasn't saying there are no peanut allergies. He said, I never knew anybody growing up who had it in my family and my 71 first cousins and in any of the friends I had at camps or schools. But actually, one of his sons has an anaphylactic allergy to peanuts, tree nuts, and other foods. Point here is careful how you hear things. Kennedy thinks nobody has peanut allergies. No, Kennedy thinks he's never knew anybody growing up who had one. And now one of his kids has it. And he said by the time he was 2, we'd been to the emergency room about almost 24 times. He has 7 kids. 5 of them have allergies. Kennedy's not saying allergies don't exist. He's saying, I never knew anyone with a peanut allergy growing up. Now I have 7 kids. 5 of them have allergies. What's wrong here? What is causing this? Why? That's the kind of questions we got to be asking. We're quick to jump on the statement, the thing that makes our case or makes the person look like they're on our team or against our team, throw them under the bus if they aren't. The one thing I admire about Kennedy is he's always been asking questions. Why? That was the thing with COVID, and I was doing it. Why? If you're saying the vaccine works, then why isn't it working? Why isn't it stopping transmission? Why isn't it stopping you from getting the disease? Why isn't it doing that? Can I ask that question? I'm not saying vaccines don't work. I'm saying, why does this vaccine not seem to do what you say it should do? Why does, why does horse medicine seem to make people better? Ivermectin, if you don't know, it is used for horses. It's also used in basically for millions of people take it in, third world countries to prevent like them getting waterborne diseases. But yes, why does ivermectin seem to work? Just asking the question. So I'm just pointing that out because I thought it was interesting. I could see the reaction. Kennedy doesn't think peanut allergies are real because he says he doesn't know anybody who had them. He didn't know anybody growing up, nor do I. Now 7 kids, 5 of them have it. Wow, that's it's well over 50%. That's like, what are you, 65%, 70% of your kids have it? And he's going, why? Why? Sure, you want to treat it, make your kids safe, but why is it happening? Why? That's the questions we got to be asking. Why are these things happening? Why are, we need to be asking the whys a lot more. We're very focused on the got yous. We're not so focused on the whys. And we're not focused on the whys unless we kind of look the other way if we don't want to. So the left is really not interested in the whys. Like, Bill Gates coming out saying there's climate change is real, but it's not the existential threat to humanity. Wow, the left went nuts. Wait, Mr. Gates, you've been putting all this money into it. Bill Gates wasn't saying climate change isn't happening. He also wasn't saying it's not bad for people and that there aren't things we're doing to cause it and it's going to cause starvation and pain points all over the world. He's saying it's not what will extinct us. We got other problems first that are more important. That's what he was saying. That's all he was saying. And the left went absolutely, they went nutty because how could he say it? He's asking the why. We're quick to focus on the thing, the problem, where it fits or doesn't fit our narrative. The why is the more important question. Why? And Bill Gates is right to ask that question. I get it's a problem, but I'm realizing it's not the first thing we got to solve. Instead of getting mad, ask the why. Same in reverse when you go to the right. And I'll wrap it up on this. When you go to the right, you know, it's like, ask yourself, don't focus on Democratic Socialist mayors and how they're going to ruin America. Ask yourself why. Why are these people winning in major U.S. urban populations where it's too expensive, you can't afford rent, education systems suck, people feel they're getting screwed? Basically, 80% of the population feels screwed. Ask yourself the why. And give someone like RFK Jr. credit. He's been asking why his whole life. We need more whys. All right, everybody. I'm Rob Nelson. Appreciate you watching. Thanks for listening. I will see you all on Rob Nelson Live on Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. This